Check.
Let's try this. Lads and ladies, welcome to the panel of champions for Full Steel Combat! I am James Buckler.
I'm his associate Patrick Dirks.
And together we are Buckler and Dirks.
Traveling troublesome troubadour.
Trademarked.
And we will be your MCs for this event. We will be opening up questions to ask any of these grandiose knights of what goes into this month.
And of course, whatever questions you ask, they have to answer. Let's see.
I believe we can start things off with a couple of questions.
All right,
well,
ladies first.
All right. I believe one question I can ask is, what exactly is Full Steel Combat again?
So, Full Steel Combat is a modern recreation of a medieval tournament. It is called buhurt, and is actually the French word for wallop. When medieval knights weren't at war, they would do these tournaments to practice their skills and stay in shape. And over the years, the rules developed to where they had to use blunted weapons, they had a point structure system, and it's what the knights did to basically prove they were the best and they could make a career and win money by doing it. So we're bringing that to you guys, a modern version of it, as safe as we can. We still get injuries, but in a nutshell, that's what Full Steel Combat is.
Do you have any question for them, Butler?
Yeah, I do have a question as a matter of fact. I noticed in the combat this morning, which was a vicious piece of work. If you didn't see it, you should see the one coming up at 1 o'clock. There is a great preference for, 3 o'clock. There seems to be a great preference for the axe. What are the advantages of an axe over, say, a sword?
Primarily reach and heft. If you got a big axe, you can swing 5-6 feet out there, and it's heavy, and you've got another end to it. You can do the rowboat if you want to. Go wham, wham, wham. Sometimes you can even hook the guy behind his head, or accidentally catch a piece of his armor, just drag his butt to the ground, and then go on to the next guy. So or it also works as a good cross check.
So you hook him near his head to drag his butt to the ground?
Yep.
Explains a lot about these knights.
You've met us.
I have.
Just to add on that too, in competitions you can't grab the blade of a sword as the rules, but with an axe you got the whole length to do it.
Leverage advantage. Let's see, walking around here, has anyone any questions for the knights here? Any questions for the knights? Oh, beg your pardon. Any brave souls want to ask a question? It's merely a question. No? We have a question. Aye, sir, what's your question? Okay, he's asking about the armor. How bad is the impact? What have you between you and the steel to soften that manner of stuff?
I'd say the armor takes about 80% of the impact. We take the other 20%. And then there's probably another 5% wiggled in there for luck and good form.
We also wear a layer of padding underneath the armor. It's called a gambeson, and on the legs are called chaussées. Not everyone wears chaussées, but everyone wears a gambeson, and it keeps the armor from pinching you, but it also absorbs a little bit of that impact. Some people like them thinner, just for mobility. Some people like them a little thicker to absorb more of that impact, but that helps with it as well. Either way, it does still hurt, depending on where you go.
If you have a question on here, please ask, and I'll get them to answer.
And one more note on that. So, to keep this as safe as possible, we also do put concussion foam in our helmets, because that is an injury that will happen in the sport. And then we have some fighters that wear modern compression clothing with built-in padding underneath their historical padding to make it even less painful on them and keep it a little bit safer.
Excellent. Now, you sir, you had a question. Do you only use steel in your combat tournament, or do you ever use weapons of other materials?
Nah, for the most part, weapons are just pure steel, either mild with some of the maces. The mace heads are mild steel, but they're solid and thick. Stuff like this, usually high carbon spring steel, stuff like that. But no titanium. We got our halves of wood or some places carbon fiber, fiberglass, things like that. But overall, anything that's going to impact a knight, probably going to be steel or just solid wood.
Isaac. What's the benefit of using a mace over a sword?
Sorry, what was the question?
What is the benefit of using a mace over a sword?
The benefits of using a mace over a sword.
So the mace is a lot easier to use. You can hit with all sides of it. When you use a sword or a one-handed axe, the weapon can turn in your hand and you can be slapping them with the flat of the blade. And a mace is also a lot lighter. So you can keep that on your shoulder in position, ready to go, to where if you're swinging a sword all day, it can eventually get tiresome to keep up there. But the veteran fighters will tell you that a mace is a newbie weapon because if you know what you're doing, you shouldn't have those troubles with a sword or a one-handed axe. But there are guys that just don't take the time to learn how to properly swing those other weapons, so they stick with the mace.
I've seen plenty of mace users in the list here the past couple of days, and I wouldn't argue with them. And we had another question over here. Aye. Do they get the ladies from fighting in the list?
Do you get the ladies from fighting?
Had a bad case of the ladies the other night.
I mean, obviously, but I got one, and then she started fighting, so.
My wife actually encouraged me to get into this sport.
Josh.
Exactly the same, and mine's right there. So.
My wife thinks I'm an idiot.
But she's still here.
Full steel combat, a full contact sport. Any other questions in this region here? Hi. How long does an average round go?
How long does an average round go?
So because it's real fighting, that varies greatly. It can be over in one punch in 15 seconds. You're welcome, Gimli. Or it can go for several minutes when we have guys like Arlen and Nick down there that Nick just stays away because Arlen stays away from Nick because nobody wants to grapple with that guy. So those rounds can go 3 minutes or more, and then by the time they're done, they both just want to die.
Now, that being said, for these rounds, we're doing a kind of exhibition. We have our own set of rules that's kind of mixed with things. If you're actually watching competition and they have dueling rounds, they actually have set times for 60 seconds per round in the duel, or 90. Just depends on the tournament. But those are also different. They're counting for points and not doing and not going to the ground. They're counting points to the shot to the head, the block, the in count, shots to the body. Everything adds up. But we don't do that here because that tends to take a little longer, and it's more fun to see people be thrown to the ground. So.
I noticed, Pastor Doug, that between yesterday and today, the fewest number of questions comes from this area, and I believe I understand why.
Why is that?
They're the ones sitting closest to the food.
There you are.
My mother always told me, never ask questions of armed knights with your mouth full. Any other questions around this area? Now's your chance to grab onto. Aye, Yaba, aye, sir. Have you ever been knocked out or concussed in competition? Well, that hand went right up.
I've definitely been concussed before. We have something called a Simon strap. It's actually named after one of the more famous fighters in our league who also had his helmet removed during a round and suffered a very serious, it wasn't even a concussion, right? He had his head split open. He survived, and he invented something called the Simon strap that straps the back of our helmets to our brigadines, which keeps it on. Anyway, I wasn't wearing one. My helmet flew off and the back of my head hit the concrete. I didn't wake up for like, maybe 30 seconds, but and now I can't count to anything higher than 10.
You should hear her count. 1, 5, 6, 12, 19, purple, 10. There we go. She gets all the way there.
But I should mention that our helmets do a pretty good job. Any blows that we take to the head are protected by the helmet. We usually have about 3 millimeters thick steel on our heads, plus the concussion padding, plus we also have extra padding in there for comfort.
It does really depend on who's hitting you and how hard though, because I've been tiptoeing for sure with the helmet on.
Definitely so. Any questions from this section here? Hi. How much do your weapons weigh?
How much do the weapons weigh?
This giant butter knife here weighs about 6.5 pounds. I think the max for some halbers are 7 pounds tops. And they can 18 ounces to 24 ounces for maces and smaller weapons like that. So it varies. Yeah, there's a rule set that we follow for the IMCF. Yeah, and it lists very specifically how much it's supposed to weigh and how long it's supposed to be and stuff like that. Yeah, it's pretty historically accurate.
On that, with the rules for all the weapons, there's actually certain radiuses the tips have to be rounded to, the blades have to be certain thicknesses, so there's a whole spec of rules that we have to follow, and so all our weapons are custom made for this sport. We're not going to buy an off-the-rack, swords you might see on the wall at a costume shop. Those look the part, but they wouldn't hold up to what we're doing, and they wouldn't be safe enough for what we're doing.
Any questions on here that I can get them to answer?
I have a question from Spider-Man. Can I see if I can come all the way around here? Alright. How often do you have to replace your armor or elements thereof? That was a disappointed smirk I saw.
So I've been doing this about 4 years, and I'm on my 3rd set of gauntlets now. You get hit in the hands a lot, and you want to keep those protected. So when those start to seem scary, I immediately replace those. I'm on my 2nd set of armor now, but I've bought other pieces here and there as I've gone along. You're on your what?
I myself am on my 2nd suit of armor, but I've replaced gauntlets many times. I'm on my 3rd helmet. Weapons you got to replace all the time because they'll crack and break.
Regular maintenance. Hi. He's too shy and wants you to ask his question for him? Okay. All right then. What is your workout routine like?
We condition on our team. We have a competitive team, San Jacinto Knights and the Iron Legion for the ladies. We condition 3 days a week as a team, but we encourage you all to condition yourself outside of it as well. We work our core, our legs, our arms, our cardio. We drill in and out of armor, and then we have combat training 2 days a week. So altogether, hourly, we probably spend about, Arlen, what do you think, 8 to 10 hours? 8 to 10 hours a week at least training and conditioning.
So I do powerlifting on top of this too, and I do that about 4 to 5 times a week, especially when I'm on a program and have to supplement HIIT workouts into it because it's not enough with what we do. We need cardio too.
I should add though that anyone of any fitness level can do this sport. You don't have to be an uber athlete to get involved. Anyone can do it. We have people that work out only when they're doing this sport. So they might only work out once a month. But it's still fun. We love doing it. So it's just for any level can participate.
Good. Any other questions from this end? Hi. Oh, you're going to ask yourself? All right. Good one. How restricted is your mobility in this armor?
How restrictive is the mobility in the armor?
So most of us, we have armor that is specifically made to our body type. So when we go to buy brand new armor, like if it's our second or third suit, we have to send in the measurements, over 30 measurements of ourselves, so the armor overseas can try to make it fit as perfect as possible. Then once we get that armor, we have our own armorer who makes sure that it fits. So if you get all that done, you have a lot of mobility. But for most of us, when it was our first suit, we just did what we could to get into armor. So we would buy, you know, whatever we can afford. And so you might get something that's a little big or a little small, and you try to make it work. And that can restrict you tremendously. So usually when you get your second or third, that's when you really start getting armor that really, really fits you properly. It's just coming through the experience and then tweaking things that better fit you.
Now that does touch upon a question that we had yesterday, also concerning the making and fitting of armor. Who makes your armor? You mentioned the overseas.
So the best armors are actually in the Ukraine. So with everything going on internationally right now, that's kind of put a big, it's greatly impacted our sport. Because this is huge overseas, and with the armor coming out of the Ukraine, some of those armors, their shops have been completely destroyed. We don't know if they're going to go back into business. We hope they do. But a few of the guys over there have gotten back up to almost normal operations, and packages are starting to get out. But most of our armor comes from over there. There are some guys in Russia, Poland, and we do have guys here in the United States. So you can get yourself some made in the USA armor. You're going to have about a year wait for it, and you're going to pay a premium.
Excellent. Any other questions along here as I am walking? And now's your chance to put a knight on the spot. No questions? You look quizzical. You could have had a question.
Buckler, we have one over here.
Oh, we have one over. Maybe I'll just stay over here then. Where is it?
This lad right here in the corner.
Come back this way. What is the most embarrassing thing that has happened to you in combat?
Oh, we got a story here.
Basically everything. Now, my first fight was around 23 seconds, and I want to say it was with you, like way back at Battlegrounds. No, it was with Jimmy. But last year, here, in fact, I was dueling with Grant, and he threw me over Lady Carly, and my helmet flew off, shot across the list, and the chainmail Aventail took a good bit of my scalp with it. I was dealing with a guy named Alex, who was here last year, but he's not here this year because of injuries. And we just started headbutting each other until blood ran down. That wasn't embarrassing, that was just I wanted to talk to you.
We've got another story over here.
So my most embarrassing moment was fighting at the Texas Renaissance Festival, and we had down some wood chips to make the ground hurt a little less. And I went to go in a sprint, and my foot got no traction, and I just immediately face planted right at the beginning of the fight. Game over. No more fight for me that round.
Mine was with you. Practice at Texas Renaissance Festival. So I thought it'd be really cool to run up and do this, I guess technically a tiger knee. Yeah, some kind of flying knee. And as I'm going up and pulling my knee, I was like, I actually got this. I didn't have it. And he just barely turned to the side, and I just flopped straight to the ground.
Our embarrassing moments make great gifts.
Last year at Texas Renaissance Festival, if you've seen any of our fights, you know that one of the rules is that you do not kick anybody in the codpiece. And I, quite on accident, kicked my opponent in the codpiece, and the whole crowd booed.
We laughed.
On accident.
Laughed at the kicking or at the booing? Who else?
Up close. He's on TV.
All right, next one. Anyone else got questions?
Another question. Is there a question over here? I've given this lot over here plenty of time to think of a question. If any of you thought of anything to ask.
Not everyone at once.
All right then, I have a question. It's for Sir James. Sir James, we do have another competition coming up at 3 o'clock, huh? In light of that, do you really think that Sir Joshua belongs in the same list as you?
Josh? Nah, he's a manager. He belongs to be sitting down in front, yelling at us to do better.
Any response to that?
I sign your paychecks.
He is a manager.
He's a manager. All right, then. Any other questions that we have? Any others?
I beg your pardon. Sir, I didn't mean to interrupt. Could you do a wee favor? Hoist that along, please. So my question is, any of you use anything that size?
Yes, please.
The only one that you didn't want to mess with.
So Gregor could probably be the only one to lift it.
Hey, so Gregor, bring all of yourself over here.
Don't break it.
I'm going to stand in the shade here rather than throw it. So I'm guessing this is a high carbon steel then.
Best of luck to the one who has to face Gregor.
I've got an interesting mold in my boot, as a matter of fact. You may want to try that one. Thank you, Sir Greg. Any other questions?
I suppose I can ask, is there any particular question that you feel you like get asked the most?
So one we get asked often is, how do I get involved in this sport? So anybody can do it, and there are teams all across the United States. So the first step is always to find the nearest team to you, reach out to them on Facebook and figure out what their practice schedule is, and just go and meet them, try on some armor, see everything in person, and if it's something that you think you want to do long term. Here in Houston, we have the Jacinto Knights of Houston. That's our competitive team. Last year, we actually took third at Nationals in Reno, Nevada, so we got a bronze medal. There's a handful of us from that team here today, and Carly is who you want to talk to for the women's team. So this is very much something that anybody can get involved in and try out. You have to be 18 years old to play with steel weapons, but a lot of our training is also done with foam. So they're working on getting a kids league going here in the United States, where the kids can go at it with foam armor and foam weapons, so that when they do get to be 18 and are covered under the insurance and can do the steel fighting, they're way ahead of anyone like us who didn't start until we were 35. Like, it's going to be good when they get that going.
It's a good thing, you do things as you do. These gentlemen, they must compete with steel instead of foam, otherwise they'd be considered foaming it in. Someone's going to hit me with an axe if I keep that up.
Buckler, we have another question down here.
Well, look, would you just like to come in here and have the mic then? Come along. I always encourage children to ask questions, but St. Sarah McLaughlin this time. If the lot of you were fighting without any weapons or armor, which one would win?
Oh, we do it practice all the time.
Probably Carly.
She just kick us all the nuts.
Take all the copies.
No, see, the answer is Anthony. He's a police officer.
What if the codpiece isn't allowed? Would you still kick them there, Lady Carly?
I'm trying. No, that's a low blow. I would never do that on purpose. Ever on purpose.
On purpose.
Well, I trust her. questions.
Oh, we have
We have one. One who is not that lad there. What is the most dangerous weapon you use? No fair answering, Lady Carly. But stand up, show it.
The two-handed axes and halberds are, which is the long pole axe, those are probably some of the most dangerous. What he's got there, you still feel it. But the times when someone does get a concussion or they are eliminated from what we call pain compliance, it's almost always one of those when he's walking around with now. Because if you get a full-on baseball type swing with one of those that strikes where they were aiming in solid, you're gonna feel that and you're not gonna wanna feel it again.
That is my weapon, and that is my most dangerous weapon, by far.
I just wanted to note that my most serious injury was a halberd blow to my upper left thigh, and I still, 2 years later, have a contusion under my skin from that blow.
So you know how the weather will change.
And I suppose something of note that this weapon here that Sir James is carrying, we like to call that one the oversized butter knife.
Medieval butter knife, a vicious thing it is. Is that a hand raised? You're pointing. Who was it? Who was it? There was a hand raised. People are telling me that there was a hand raised, and I see no hand.
Hand over here.
Wait, we have someone over here?
All right, give me Candy Owen.
Oh, this guy.
Who is it?
Oh,
Another one over here.
How long, Minnie Mouse?
We'll get you in a second.
I'll get you in a second.
This seems primarily directed towards Sir Joseph. Do you, or, sorry, Joshua, begging your pardon, Sir Joshua, do you or anyone else throw your shields as seems to be indicated by its decoration?
So I can't throw the shield, but I actually use it. In our sport, shields are as much as a weapon as they are for defense. I use this to punch with, and it's a lot more effective than actually striking with the mace. It's got more weight to it, and it's completely has a steel edge all the way around it.
We had a question from this gentleman over there. Do any of you have a particularly favorited knight character? A favorite knight character that you emulate, perhaps?
Not so much that I imitate, but you know, growing up, watching A Knight's Tale, that's one of the things that probably shaped me wanting to get into just the medieval reenactment and that sort of stuff. Because you know that was a movie where, I mean, the whole tagline is anyone can change their stars, you can be a knight. So that is one of the things that really motivated me, and it's a movie that I can put on and watch a million times in a row.
Aragorn. I know he's not technically a knight, even though he's the king of Gondor, but he embodies everything that a medieval knight really usually does. Humility, gracefulness, everything a knight should be, Aragorn is.
I'd go a little pre-medieval, but we'll lie for the 13th player.
Aragorn is a good one, too. I mean, he's a king, so he can be whatever he wants. He's a knight. Now, someone back here was asking questions behind my back. Is there anyone who wants to do it properly?
We have another response from now.
Where?
The elite knight from Dark Souls.
That's a good one. What was yours, Gregor?
What do you think? Sir Gregor.
Aye, Sir Gregor.
Master in service of the king, no matter what.
Aye, true that.
That character from Game of Thrones, what was named after yourself?
Yes.
yes. Yes, they will.
Bet you how many years after yourself?
Oh, Kansas City. Hold on.
Butler. We have one over here.
Of course we do.
If you can.
Do you play Dungeons and Dragons, and have you any preferred classes of species?
I'm currently running 3 games and 2 more. So yeah, most of us are nerds. In fact, some of us are in fact nerd knights. Brad, Josh, Andrew. We do Twitch stream, but I'm not gonna sort that out right now. Just call me later. But yeah, my preferred class is a kobold fighter. I like to scream a lot. Pack tactics are fun.
So I'm pretty new to it still, but variant fighter. I tried to recreate guts.
So I've been playing D&D for quite a while, and I've been playing with the same group of guys since we were all about 10 or 12 years old. And now that they've all moved, we actually don't do it in video. But I always play human variant, and I always play fighter.
So you're telling me you've been playing with the same group for more than a year?
Yes.
Simple, quick show of hands. Raise your hand, knights, if you have ever made a character of yourself.
Yes. Anything to add?
I made a character myself. A lot of my friends call me the GOAT for reasons I won't go into here. But yeah, he's a satyr paladin of the Chalice. It's a homebrew class. Look it up.
Who makes your weapons?
Mine specifically comes from historicum.co. It's from Poland. It's based on a manuscript called the Mac Bible, the Morgan Bible. Ostensibly, it's 13th century French, but that's the only place I've ever seen this silly looking thing.
Most of my stuff comes from buhurt. We have some stuff from BKS. This guy hit my axe behind me.
Yeah, when it comes to weapons, there's more of a variety of makers. More common, it's not as intricate as the armor. Again, a lot of them come from Ukraine, some from Russia, some from Poland. There's a new shop in Canada that makes them. But we also have a sponsor for the Full Steel Combat Show that's called Asgardian Armory, and they sell BKS, Baltimore Knife and Steel, and they are knife and sword. And they're based out of Houston. They have a shop out of Texas Renaissance Special. They do a lot of our show weapons here. But there's American makers. We've got a couple guys on the team that make some weapons as well. But I think they come from all over.
I believe I see a hand up over
Well, I
here.
had one over here first.
Right, let's go to there first.
How long does it take you to completely suit up and be ready for combat?
That depends on the fighter and if you have a squire. Just like in medieval times, you need help to get this stuff on. There are guys that have their kits pretty dialed in and can do most of it themselves, but you still need help. So if you've got someone that knows what they're doing, you can get into it in 10 minutes. If you're struggling and talking instead of getting ready for your show, it can take people an hour to get their armor on. Not looking at anybody up here.
Clearly not.
So it means those 5 minutes.
I was gonna say, it takes me till exactly fight time to get ready. Could be 5 minutes, could be 5 minutes, could be an hour.
So, our squires, though, we really need those guys. They're like the unsung heroes of the show and the sport. Because Josh and I tried to put armor on each other last year at TRF, and we were tired before we could start fighting.
Round of applause for our squire.
Round of applause for our squires.
So the next question, similar to the one about fitness, general weight and tear, is there any strain specific that shows up on the athletes in this competition? Any physical strain?
Any particular strain that shows up in combat?
Knees are what go out often in this sport. Shoulders up, joints apparently. We're just bad at keeping our joints protected. I've torn my left ACL, and now I have to fight with a brace on. I've done something to my shoulder, so I fight with a brace on now on that too. I'll pass it down to Curran. He can talk about all the injuries he's had.
Thank you. No one asked that question, but I'll answer it anyway. I've torn both my ACLs completely. Got those repaired, and I had an injury from one of those surgeries. I had to get surgery on too, so it was 3 surgeries. And I had immediately after those healed, after I was finally cleared to fight again, after about the second practice, I completely removed my bicep from my arm. So it rolled up like a tape measure. And I had to have surgery to get that reattached to it. So now I'm back, and I have a lot of joint pain, but I'm good. So, but yeah, knees and shoulders are big ones. Sometimes we see some broken bones. That's not as common, but it happens if you get hit in one of the parts where there's no armor. They call them gaps. We try to avoid those for these shows, but in competitions, accidents happen. But usually arms, hips, if there's no coverage between the leg armor and the rig, or someone reaches up and their rig lifts up, that's a good spot to hit there. So we'll have some hip injuries there. And then obviously concussions can be depending on what you hit.
We actually have one fighter out right now with a broken arm, and it broke from the impact through his armor. Like it was a clean hit on the armor, and it still broke his arm.
All right, so we have another question. You, young man. Now you've asked half the questions from this side. If you ask one more question, I'm going to make you sit over there, right? All right, what's your question? What is your favorite place to have competed?
Favorite place to have competed?
Somewhere cold.
Probably here.
Or it's air conditioning.
We're gonna go with this one because it's the air conditioning. Most of what we do is outside in the sun, and we're in like a tent for shade, with a lot of times not much air movement. So this is definitely the best venue we've ever fought at, and they take care of us here, and we love it.
We would like to point out that we have new sponsors that we fight for. We love fighting there too. Just throw that out there. Southern Star Brewery, we love you.
Yeah, we're fighting their cooler next time. Sure, they'll win out.
For those who are merely passing by, instead of coming by and taking the opportunity of a lifetime to ask a living knight a question about living as a knight, our next competition will be at 3 o'clock. But before that, does anyone over here have a question this time? Hurry, or they're going to tell me to run over there for a question again. Make one up.
We got one over there.
You can go the other way, You're gonna get tangled.
Where are you? Better not be a wee lad in a red shirt. Oh, thank goodness. Asking what is your favorite or least favorite portion of your armor? Talking about what actually feels comfortable wearing, what offers the most impediment, that manner of thing.
My least favorite is my helmet.
There's this belt right here that holds up this leg armor, and it really gets irritating.
They went immediately to the part that they like.
The least favorite piece definitely was what Grant said. The belt that holds up your leg armor, it's worth it. Some people get them dialed in, but I've yet to find one that actually has worked for me that well. Some people have done suspenders and other things, and there's historical patterns out there that people use, but for me that's my least favorite part. My favorite is probably my helmet. I have a wolf rib, which is arguably the least safe helmet of all of them because it is very open. But I can see very well, and my breathing is not restricted. But if someone falls wrong with the weapon or I land on something, I could lose an eye. It's happened to people. But it hasn't happened to me yet, so knock on wood.
Still one show left. At 3 o'clock.
Is this a year-round sport, and do you attend international competitions?
Yeah, it's year round, and it's like 5 of us on this team have won bronze at a national competition. We were going to compete for the international competition, but the war with Russia and everything made that canceled. So we're hoping for next year to do it and see where we go, but we still have nationals at the end of this year.
I believe one question I can pose. This question got asked yesterday, and I quite liked it. We have some different stylings of helmets here. Do they serve a functionality, or are they mostly just for style points?
So you want to have a helmet that matches the type of armor you're wearing. So there's some people that pick their helmet based off of that. If he wants to have a Eastern or Mongolian style suit of armor, you happen to have the helmet that matches that. And then if you want like a European style suit of armor, you need a helmet that matches that at the same time period. We're pretty flexible with that rule. If you look like a knight, you're a knight. But the other factors that go into it is the level of protection you want versus visibility and breathing. The safest helmets you can't see as well out of, and it's a lot harder to breathe. As opposed to my helmet, as I mentioned earlier, it's very open. So that's another big factor that comes into play there.
Any other questions? Do the helmet shuffle here to safely walk among them. Have you thought of one, madam? Have you thought of one? Have you thought of a question? No? Do you have a question? Do you have a question? I three.
Do you have a question
Thank
back there?
Where?
Yeah.
What's the question? What are some of your favorite characters?
Some of your favorite characters.
Of what? Of what in particular? Video games, comic books, RPG? Video games.
Dragonborn, man. The Dragonborn.
Say Witcher and Flash Drive.
I don't game that often, but the last game I played was Mario. No, the last Star Wars game that came out with Cal is the Jedi in that one. He's probably my favorite video game character.
The Witcher. Now, to be fair, what's yours? Crash Bandicoot is his.
That's a good one.
Do you ever joust?
Do any of you ever joust?
Please, sir, Joshua, joust the facts.
I was training a while back for it, but that kind of got sidetracked when I tore my ACL. I really haven't done much in a while on that. So most of us focus on ground fighting. There are people that do both, but ground fighting is what we focus on.
I have a question I can ask. Is there any other events besides this one where we might see you? Any sort of social media pages or anything like that?
FullSteelCombat.com and Full Steel Combat on all your social media will have our event schedule. I believe the next big thing we have coming up is the Texas Renaissance Festival. We'll be there weekends through October and November. And we will probably have a few more dates coming up at Southern Star Brewery. We're finalizing the details on those. That's up in Conroe. And there's a small fair south of Dallas that they are rescheduling that I think we're going to be doing. So check our website for that information.
That's a grand coincidence. You know, Master Dirt and I will be at Texas Renaissance Festival ourselves.
We shall.
Assuming we can get over the wall this time. They keep closing the gate in our faces.
I know the last time we got in, the door was wide open.
What's that?
Not the gate, mind you, but we had to climb in through a bed chamber. That door was wide open.
Not wrong you are.
There's someone over here.
No. If you want to ask another question, you come over here to ask it, young man. Come on.
You think he's kidding?
I'm waiting over here.
Come on, there you are.
Going to ask all of the questions. Wait till I'm over here and bring me over there. Well, no, Master Young Knees, you can come over here for a change.
Oh, sorry.
What's the question? What is the heaviest piece of armor you wear, and what is the lightest piece of armor you wear?
Yeah, the single heaviest piece of armor is going to be the helmet. They usually range anywhere from 15 to 22 pounds. Starting over 20, it's ridiculous. It's a lot. But the really heavy ones that are really protective, that are 3 millimeters all the way around, I've got one. I didn't bring it. I hate it, but it's heavy. Lightest piece is probably the Sabatons. Not everybody wears them, but the Sabatons cover our feet. You can get them in titanium, make them lighter, but they're so small that the steel is fine. Which there's a question nobody asked, but we do use different types of metals for armor. We have titanium and some, and steel. Titanium's a little more expensive, but it weighs less. But it also isn't as forgiving to repair. It cracks easier. But when you're looking to get a lighter kit and to have a little better movement, a lot of guys will go with titanium. If you're trying to be more tanky, the guy that sits there and gets hit, usually you tend to go with steel a little more. But there's also other benefits like steel tends to rust. It does. It does a lot. You'll notice some of these people, like sort of Gimli over there, has brown legs. That's rust. That's not clean your armor. But you gotta oil the stuff. I mean, you gotta oil it. You gotta sand it. Like use some SOS pad and actually clean it, twist it after every use. Because any moisture, any oil will cause real steel to rust. Same thing with the weapons. A lot of these weapons are made out of steel, or the BKS is made out of 5150 chrome alley. But if you were to touch it with your finger, the oil from your finger will leave a rust fingerprint on that weapon if you don't clean it off. So you're supposed to oil it after every use. Try not to touch it as much as possible. Which obviously isn't possible with the helmets and stuff like that. But it's a constant struggle because all the helmets are made of steel, keeping them from rusting. So we have a very strict. We should have a very strict cleaning policy on all our armor after we fight.
All right, we have about 15 minutes left in this Q&A panel. Are there any other questions that anyone here has?
Any other questions? I thought I saw a hand raise, it was a head raising. Any questions?
All right,
then. The fight.
All right then. Well then, we will leave the last few minutes. The knights will be here available for photographs and any other personal questions you want to come and ask them personally. And just as a reminder, at 3 o'clock, you will see all of these grand knights that you come to know and love beat each other senseless. So be sure to come back for that tournament there. But again, the knights will be available here for photographs and any other questions you may have. We thank you.
Alright, Cece, did you have any questions that you wanted to ask Grant or any of these other guys up here since you're commenting on here? Darn it. Here you go. It's still on.
Hey guys. Thor. Yeah, Thor's a good one. Sorry, I'm just catching up. Oh, Alex, you can have my autograph. Absolutely. You want his autograph too? Say hi, Alex.
Hi, Alex. Don't be jealous, but...
Greg? Okay. Oh, cool. Thank you.
Your, Alex, your helmet got me again.
Yep.
I'll put a dent in it.
Yes.
All the blood, just for you.
Oh, you're welcome for the live streams too. Thanks to my wife, big time.
Oh, just that you're
Yeah.
watching. Does having it sideways like that, like, screw up for people watching on their phone?
If it's YouTube, it looks funny otherwise. So we figured we'd try it this way. I don't know. Is it better landscape or portrait on the live streams? Hey, what's up?
Mine was 26, so with Ukraine being down, a lot of the cheapest armor
It does. All right, y'all. We're gonna cut it off, but we'll be back for the last show at 3 o'clock Central. So see you then, okay? Thanks, everyone.